about the VOD and the silver screen. Kevin and Tom and Joe know all there is to know, from masterpieces to deep fried tacos. And if the movie sucks, you might hear them say, there's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers. Real spoilers. Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude. This is Real Spoilers, episode 712, Halloween 4.2.
That's fair. Okay. Well, like 3 point.
It's Halloween 40.3, right?
Yeah, it's 40.3, yeah.
It's the third in this trilogy, which makes it the fourth chronologically if you ignore the other 17.
Oh, okay.
I think it is the longest running franchise, I think.
James Bond?
Not a horror franchise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, they made it to 13 before Friday the 13th.
They made it. Yes, that's right. They did. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's go around the table and introduce ourselves before we forget.
This is Joe.
This is Kevin.
And this is Tom. And joining us via the magic of ZoomTube is Justin from a whole host of things.
Yes.
That he might or might not be with.
My hands are in lots of different things.
Hey, now.
This is Justin from the Epic Film Guys, who you last heard on our review of The Batman.
I just thought he was a gynecologist.
I mean, good for you, bud.
His hands are in all sorts of things.
You can ask my wife.
Yeah.
I'm good at that or not.
Hey,
He's a hobbyist.
Hey, that's HIPAA compliance. We can't go into that, okay?
So
Yeah, thanks for having me on for this. This is a blast.
Absolutely.
well, we'll fix that. So, I'm sick, but I tested. It's not COVID. But
I mean, I had it in July.
yeah,
You're due.
I guess.
So
Yeah,
you're due.
I'm about due for another round of it.
yeah. It almost messed up a vacation for you guys.
Close, very close, but to like the day.
Yeah,
Yeah, messed up your vacation, didn't it?
yeah. My wife tested positive the day before we left for Hawaii.
Yeah, I tested
Yeah.
negative the day before I left.
Yeah, I was like, oh, goodness. Oh, shameless plugs. Don't forget we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you find a podcast, you can find us. While you're there, well, I guess we're there too. Be sure and follow us so you never miss an episode. Maybe leave us a review. That's always nice. You can also find us on YouTube now, youtube.com/type Real Spoilers into the search bar because we don't have a fancy
We'll
handle
find
yet.
it.
One of these days.
It'll get there.
We haven't gotten the invite yet.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, everyone, we got to hit 100 subscribers quick because that's the rules. They're right here in the terms. And then it wouldn't work for like 3 days. And then after me refreshing the page for 3 days straight, it said, oh, by the way, our personalization system is down.
Yeah.
Great.
And now it's like they sent me an email
Oh, really?
for the YouTube channel for the clip out. That's like, oh, here's how we do it now, but we already have one. So
Of course, the
I sent it to
clip
I gotta
out,
tell you,
the clip out
just-
gets there.
yeah,
They hand
yeah,
delivered
right, yeah.
theirs.
So I forwarded it to Kevin, and they're like, "Oh no, it still doesn't work for us."
Yeah, right. No, it's
That
I mean,
was
what are you
like,
gonna
okay.
We'll get ours by the time they change it again.
do? I know. Yeah.
But you can find us on Vine.
Yeah, oddly enough.
Yeah. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Real Spoilers. We're for $5 a month. You get all sorts of bonus content. We like you a little bit extra. By a little bit, we mean a lot. And you can also share an episode. That's super helpful. People who were kind enough to share an episode this week include Julianne Jordan, Librarian Cynthia, Heather Sachs, Chris Valls, Josh Rosen, Christopher Rex, Tammy Lynn Powers, Betts, Gabriel Lugo, Ralph Tribble, Travis T. Witt, Chris Magic Man, David Rojas, Matt Neglia, Dissect That Horror.
Yeah.
It's weird that like the horror one shared it the week before. I think maybe they're marketing geniuses, right?
They could be.
They're like, I'm going to share
That's
it
right.
the week before the Halloween episode.
Right.
Or they completely misinterpreted Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was pretty horrible. Collateral Cinema, Ronnie Castle, Vertigay 314, the Manic Pixie Weirdo Podcast, Chris Williams. I don't even know how to say this. S. John 4.
Oh.
So
Okay.
if I'm saying that wrong, S. John, let me know.
Sure, it's not John. Sure, not John Jones.
No, it's
Okay.
SJONGE.
Then you're
Okay.
correct.
4.
That's fair.
In Session Films, Binge Movies, Geek to Me Radio, Invasion of the Remake, Ryan Terry, Feel and Film, D.W. Lundberg, and Minorities Report. So thank you very much for sharing an episode. we greatly appreciate it. So there's all of that. Let's dig in, shall we?
Oh man,
Joe's been waiting. Justin's chomping at the bit. These horror guys.
I said that I have I was worried, right? Because the last one I was like, no, that first 10 minutes is great, and then I had to defend it for the rest of the podcast. I think this is fantastic.
Oh.
I think this is David Gordon Green told his story. It's over. I got to tell you that. I don't know how you come back from the end of this movie with these characters.
I'm sure they can find a way.
I always do.
I don't think you can. I mean, we'll get into it. But
have you ever seen a horror movie before,
I've seen a
Joe?
few of them. I've never seen one of the villains get. Well, we'll get into what happens to
Resurrect him by lightning. Just stake him through the chest. The bones. Put them together.
But he was in one piece.
I mean, literally, there's anything they can do.
Right.
Halloween
I think
has an essence of magic to it anyway. So
yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think this story is done. Now, obviously, Blumhouse can do whatever they want. I don't know what they're going to come back with something else, but this version of this story is over.
We'll see. So this is okay. So this is interesting. So you were a Kills guy.
So okay, I like Kills because it's a Halloween movie, right? Like the Halloween franchise is my favorite franchise. It's the best. I liked Kills because I got to see a new Halloween movie.
Yeah.
And I think I stand by it. The first 15 minutes of that movie are fantastic.
Are they better than that one movie on the ship?
Ghost Ship?
What, is that the one that you love the first 10 minutes of?
First 10 minutes of Ghost Ship is great.
Justin?
Oh, it's known that it's one of the best 10 minutes of any
Thank you very
horror
much.
movie ever
Okay.
made, for
Just
sure.
saying.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Rest of the
like-
movie, that's arguable.
Okay, because I'm like, if there's someone to check Joe on this, it's Justin. I'm like, he's going to know.
First 10 minutes of Ghost Ship is perfection.
Okay.
But again, like getting that recap in Kills of changing how that story begins, I think is great. The rest of the movie is what it is. And I think there's no character development in Kills. It's just we're just going to throw him into the Haddonfield and just slaughter as many people as possible.
Oh, you get character development in this. I'm not sure why.
So Justin, you were on the sane side of things with Kills. You did not like Kills.
Yeah, it was probably believe me, when it comes to the Halloween franchise in general, I've been disappointed on numerous occasions. I've walked out of the theater a few times after watching one and felt like I was sick to my stomach and that I probably needed therapy for 3 weeks. So it wasn't that big of an impact, but it kind of was in a way because I loved 2018. I loved the back to the basics approach. Yeah. I loved Laurie Strode's story in that. I felt like that was a perfect beginning and ending to a new Laurie Strode story. But of course, it became one of the largest horror movies of all time. We all knew there was going to be more of them. There's always going to be more of them. And to answer your question, they're going to be making another one of these, not with the same cast or this story, but in the next 3 years, I've been told, and I already know what it's about. So I don't know if that's going to change, but I gave it a few chances, and I'm a massive slasher fan. I love movies that are unrelenting, just brutal gore, death. Like, that's my... But for some reason, Kills just did not work for me as a Halloween movie. I thought there were too many bad decisions. And here, I'm just going to say this outright right now. I think it's the worst Halloween movie in the entire Halloween franchise.
That's
100%.
That's
100%.
crazy.
It immediately had me thinking about all of the old Halloween movies like Resurrection or Rob Zombie's movies and reevaluating them in my head. Like, I would rather go home and have a six-pack and watch Halloween Resurrection than watch Halloween Ends ever again.
Oh, my God.
Love it. See, this is a divisive movie. And it's funny because you have people that love the Halloween franchise.
Yeah.
Justin and Joe love the franchise. So it's not like, non-franchise people think this. And franchise, it's like this movie is so polarizing.
I know. I tried to stay off Twitter or wherever just to see what people were saying because it's a cesspool, right? Like,
sure.
It's just the loudest are going to be the ones that you don't want to hear from.
There's going to be people that are irrational and
Yes.
unreasonable, just making crazy comments. You know, you got to weed through all that to get to people like Justin and you,
Right.
people that are forming opinions based on the franchise that they know and giving it a chance. You know, you've got certain people that are always just going to throw stuff under the bus. I love the 2018 movie. I think
great.
that is phenomenal. I think Kills is one of the worst movies, hands down, that just, not even just horror or Halloween movies, but Kills is so bad. So it's, for me, Ends brought it up. This movie's weird, and they go a
It's
different
very weird.
direction. It's different, but I appreciated some of what they were trying to do, and I thought there's no way it's worse than Kills for me.
No, I agree. I agree with you.
So it brought it up, but I don't think they stick the landing exactly. There's some ideas in this movie that I really
Yes.
appreciated. The ideas of how trauma can affect people and how you've got Michael Myers that terrorized this town for all these years and killed so many people. But then even when he's not around, what effect does he have? Do you really even need Michael Myers, or is it just the idea of the boogeyman? And can there be another boogeyman that kind of lives like the spirit of Michael Myers lives through? And there's just some interesting ideas, I think, but
They should have explored them.
and they should have explored. I
They
think
should have in a different movie, maybe.
Yeah, that's
that where
what
it would have worked.
that's what I'm
where I feel on this. It's a lot of cool ideas.
Yeah.
I think it would have been.
If you remove the Michael Myers aspect out of it and have it a completely different original thing. I mean, yeah. Ever heard of the movie Christine? Yeah, that's this. But it really is.
But that's what
I
we
think
say
it
about
would've-
Halloween 3 too.
I think it would have
as
worked
well, not
better if they had finished their story, and this is what they did, picking up after the ending of this movie.
Yeah,
Well,
like you don't need
exactly,
Michael Myers
exactly.
anymore. You
Right,
get a new
because-
Michael Myers.
Because the
Yeah.
problem is, it's like you spend 2/3 of this movie thinking they're passing the torch to a new villain,
Right.
and then when they don't, you're like, well, then why did you spend 2/3 of your movie talking about this guy?
It's
plot device.
Yeah, I mean, there was no. I mean, but I wasn't even a plot device. Like, what did it accomplish? It accomplished nothing. And then the last movie sidelined the women, the female characters,
Right.
and this movie sidelines the villain.
Well, and I think the worst part is that it is supposed to be the final movie, right? So if you told this story in between, if you Halloween 3'd it and there was another actual ending coming, okay, maybe. But when you spend 2/3 of the movie exploring what I think are these very interesting ideas, but then you're just like, nope, and then you're like, oh yeah, but it is ending right at the end here.
Yeah.
It just feels like, well, why did you not give these characters the proper send-off? Laurie and Michael have their showdown like rushed at the end.
It's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's literally like 5 minutes.
Right.
And this was promised to us. No, and I'm not that guy that's like, you promised us David Gordon Green, but in reality, that's what they said, an epic conclusion or whatever, that tagline. And we did not receive that. But, to comment on what you were saying a minute ago, Kevin, had this movie been in the middle, we got kills third or something, or if they rearranged them a little bit, I feel like this could have gelled a little bit better, because it's culture shock for not just big fans, but also like the GA. They're like, wait, what the fuck? Like, you just gave me like one of the most iconic epic slashers. I mean, even though if you didn't like it with kills, but then you kind of like slow down and give us this character study of this character that I never really connected to in any way. I never related to in any way. I know what they were trying to go for, but it was, I feel like for this movie, it just didn't work in the connection to the storyline and the timeline that they set up.
I think the problem is we got kills.
I think kills-
if we take kills out of the equation and ends is your second movie, I think it plays completely differently.
Kills should be at the end, but the end of this movie's tagged onto Kills, and it ends.
Right.
Like, I think the problem is they split this movie. I think
Yeah.
they should have had it be, the last movie should have been the last one, and they tried to get another movie out of it. And so if they would have actually put a finite ending onto Kills and then taken out some of the moronic
It is-
Evil
it is-
Dies Tonight business that
Well,
happened
not
for
even
an
that.
hour.
Like I
just the ongoing
but I mean,
stupidity
I
of the...
rewatched Kills before I saw this, and there is just like a weird. And David Gordon Green, we know, came from a comedy background, right? Like
Sure.
we know with Danny McBride, like we know that. So there are some weird comedic beats in Kills that, for whatever reason, they work perfectly in Halloween 2018. Right? You've got the babysitter, you've got the kid that the friend is babysitting, who is very funny and witty.
2018 is incredible. The whole thing is
Yeah.
just, I mean, they...
But he's able to weave that humor in there
Sure.
with still being scary. Where in Kills, it felt like we had some weird stuff going on in that movie, and then in this
It
one,
didn't flow. I just didn't think
flow.
it flew well
I don't
either.
I don't disagree.
Because
at
I
all.
don't
There's
think
just-
it's one. It's not one movie. It's half a movie, basically. Like they really, there should have been.
They stretched it,
2018,
for
yeah,
sure.
2018,
and then
the combination
then
of
the
these
end,
two.
right? This movie and that movie are one movie that are split apart, and that's why the last one's so bad, because like nothing happens. Like, yeah, there's some kills in it,
Yeah.
but a whole bunch of the movie is them walking around doing the Evil Dies Tonight, and it gets so,
So-
old because
I
it
love
just,
how Kevin's just like, yeah, there's some kills in it, like hence the name.
yeah, right. See,
It's true though. I mean, they knew they didn't have a full movie there. They really
Yeah.
didn't. But they said, listen, we can stretch this thing and give hardcore slasher fans what they want, and like pure utmost brutality, which is enjoyable. It's all well done. It's like really cool to watch, but none of it really makes sense from the point that they want to go from in 2018 to the point they want to go to and ends here. And in its essence, it really just hurts the whole entire thing.
It does, because it's like now you've taken, I mean, you fall so far in kills, and then this one I think again picks it up a little bit, but it being like the final film, the one where Michael Myers is supposedly dead at the end and it's their send off for Laurie, it just leaves you with this bad taste in your mouth where now the whole thing is kind of like,
so I don't think, to me it didn't leave a bad taste in my mouth, because I wasn't sure how this was going to end, honestly. Like I thought we were going to kill them both.
Yeah. Right.
That's where I thought we were going to go. That makes total sense given where we see Laurie in 2018 and how, what has happened to her. It would make sense that in Kills, or that in this one, that's it. Like, we're going to kill them both. We're going to end Laurie's story officially. Laurie Strode technically dies off screen in Halloween 4. She dies on screen in Halloween Resurrection. But this was going to be it. This was going to be the end of this story. So giving her kind of the hero send-off, I think, is good. I like that we get a definitive ending to the story. She is she is the ultimate final girl, and I know that that term is probably not looked at the way that it used to be, but she's the first, and she finally, after 40 years of fighting this guy, she wins, right? She's resilient, she's smart, she's sort of setting traps and tricking somebody into thinking that something may have happened, and we'll get into that as we go forward. But giving her that final ending where she doesn't die and she can go on with her life and she gets somewhat of a happy ending, I think is kind of brilliant, because you never see what happens to these women at the end of these movies. You see them survive,
which is what made the first one in this reboot run so good,
right?
And because it was really smart, and I can only assume that was an accident.
I don't know. Like that's
well, it was reshot. The ending of 2018 was reshot twice. So the original ending for 2018 tested insanely terribly. So they went back and redid the whole thing. If you've ever seen or heard of the original ending, it's like Michael and Laurie have a knife fight with one another, and then they injure each other, and then it basically ends. It's like ridiculously bad. So
okay,
it's a powerful ending in 2018, and I just wanted to come on what you're saying in terms of that. I mean, let's face it, the best part about this movie is the ending. It is powerful. I just wish that it was tacked onto another movie.
Exactly.
That's totally fair.
It should be this ending should be tacked on to Kills somehow.
I think the procession,
or even in Kills, if they just killed him off. I mean, they accomplished the same thing. Laurie can get away and have a happy ending in Kills if they just kill Michael off.
Sort of.
She sets the trap and kills him. Like, she gets it. Why? But they're like, oh, let's get another
because the curse is still going to be there, right? But you can't have a movie without that mask on the poster. You can't have the shirts without the mask on them. You need that mascot in terms of what the fans' expectations are. And then
they tried that once.
Oh, right. With three?
And I mean, we all know how that ended up, but now it's a cult classic, and now it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
So
just give this one 20 years, right?
Well, that's what everyone's saying, Kevin. But
that's right. Yeah, right. The original, the new Halloween 3 of.
But it's so interesting that they do pass the mask for a little bit in this movie. Like so I don't know if they're going to call that a bait and switch, or they pull out the rug and surprise you, but like he's dressed up, like you're like, oh, they're passing the mantle.
Here's the thing about these movies, right? Yeah. If you are a member of the Patreon, you know that I did an interview with Dustin McNeil, who wrote, along with his co-writer, wrote 2 books, Taking Shape and Taking Shape 2. Taking Shape is like you could kill somebody with the size of this book. And it's just a breakdown talking to directors and producers and actors of every Halloween movie up until 2018. There's a second book that was just supposed to be like a tack on, like a little extra, that turned out to be another book that you would murder somebody with, of all of the unmade sequels of Halloween. As I'm watching this ends, I was like, man, this sounds vaguely familiar, right? So the original idea for Halloween 5 with Danielle Harris was that she was going to be the killer. There was going to be a psychic link between Jamie Lloyd and Michael Myers, and Jamie was going to be the killer. Mustafa Akkad, who was the producer at that point, was like, this is a terrible idea.
You need the boogeyman in the movie with the knife.
We can't have this 7-year-old girl murdering adults. So they changed it to what it was. That's one of the least popular ones.
I mean, H2O even. Charlie was supposed to be a copycat killer in that one. He was supposed to be wearing the mask and having the knife. So they've already played with a lot of the ideas that are injected into this movie.
Yes.
It's very interesting.
The original H2O, which was written by, it was Two Faces of Evil by Robert Zapaya, I think is his name, was going to have 2 killers. And you're going to have Michael, and then you're going to have like a copycat. So it's just interesting to see like all of these bits and pieces that still show up, and I think that was written in like 96, 97. So it's like just these weird little pieces that keep popping up. Also, the credits of this movie were the Halloween 3 credits.
Yeah, the first
Halloween 3.
Yeah, the blue
the font for Halloween 3. I was
it's
like,
the only other one that's.
I got to tell you, I did see those credits, and I was like, oh no.
Season of the Witch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised there weren't more references. Like
You got 'em in
it being the third movie, you'd think that they
got
would.
them in kills.
But it's
dude,
also
the biggest
fourth
crime,
movie.
and I just tweeted this morning, literally before we started. The biggest crime of this entire trilogy is that we didn't get a Tom Atkins cameo.
I know. Yeah,
Seriously.
He's the first guy.
All right, so plot-wise, because I want to get into some of the stuff with this new character who becomes 2/3 of the movie.
Right. So we go to 2019. So we're a year out from not the original, but the 2018 Halloween.
From H4O.
H4O. Yeah, we're introduced to Corey, who's this kind of a babysitter, but kind of just like he works for this family, cuts their lawn, so he has like this relationship with this family, and they ask him to babysit last minute Halloween night.
These are horrible parents. Okay, first off, the logic here.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
This kid's supposed to be, what, 8, 9 years old?
Give or take.
So it's Halloween night.
Yes.
And you're not taking your child trick-or-treating.
No.
You're going to a party.
You're going to a party and pawning them off on a babysitter.
So that's what the original one is, though, too, right?
I mean,
in 1978, Laurie Strode is babysitting Tommy Wallace because his parents are out.
Well, they're all babysitting while the parents.
I guess
are
that's true. Yeah, they're all babysitting,
Yeah.
except for PJ Souls.
But don't we see them trick-or-treating earlier?
Yeah. That's
you
true.
see kids
She's just getting
trick-or-treating
laid with
earlier.
Bob.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like-
Right. Thank you.
I'm like,
But in this movie's defense, like that's how 78 starts.
Yeah.
Or ends, I guess, is Laurie's babysitting Tommy while the parents are out. So nah.
So
it's
it's a game that goes horribly wrong.
It's also this is one of the, I'm not gonna look. I did love this movie, but there are some things that were weird. The character switch with this kid happens real fast. So we see him initially, and he's playing like with a paper airplane, and he's like, "Come play with me, let's hang out," and he's totally cool. And then we flash forward a little bit, and these two characters are watching John Carpenter's The Thing, of course. Like, that's what we're going to do.
And then it fucked that kid up for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
Instantly
see?
switched. Like, I'm going to... Instant insanity.
But, so that kid is watching that movie, but then there is a part, it's one of the greatest special effects ever on film is of the head coming off the body. And even Corey, the babysitter, is like, all right, I think we need to be done. And the kid, like, just flips on him. He's like, you're a garbage babysitter. And it's just like,
the kid's a jerk.
But he's not though. I don't think that he is until this moment.
I mean, the kid's mad that he has to go to bed at 8:30 and he's not out trick or treating, and he's a jerk kind of the whole time. But when the babysitter says, "Turn this movie off that we're enjoying,"
right?
And Corey's creeped out. I mean, here's the thing: it's a year past the H4O, the 2018 movie. This terrible stuff has just happened again after all the Michael Myers stuff that Haddonfield has been privy to over the years, and so everyone's on edge. It's the next Halloween. He's freaked out. Corey's freaked out, and the horror movie's setting him off. And so I think it's really, Corey seems cool until the kid starts really acting like a jerk.
Yeah.
And from then on, the kid disappears on him. He's playing tricks. He opens the door.
This is actually a pretty well done.
I like this opening scene.
Yeah,
I like that you can see like shadows
too.
in the background.
It's a creepy scene.
And you're not sure what is going on.
I like the head fake of him accidentally killing him.
Yeah,
like
when that kid says they don't kill kids in this movie, and not Michael Myers doesn't kill kids, he kills babysitters, and I was like,
yeah,
I think that kid might die.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it that they flipped the script there. It's a creepy moment. Like there's a knife. He's cutting the bread that the mom has baked, and then you go back and the knife isn't there. So you're thinking it's Michael Myers. The door's open, but it's the kid playing tricks and being a little jerk. And so he ends up locking Corey in a room,
like an unfinished part of the attic.
Yeah, and he's messing with him. He's like, he's gonna get you. You're gonna die. He's gonna kill you. And it's like really anxiety inducing.
It is. And I will say that the actor that plays Corey, I think up until a certain. in this moment, he's really good. Like you can feel that he's scared. You can feel that and then he starts kicking on this door. The parents are walking in. They can hear him say, "I'm going to." They can hear Corey say, "I'm going to kill you." Kicks the door. The door hits the kid in the face, and he does a swan dive off of what looks to be about 17 stories in the air.
I've got quite the foyer here.
And the way the kid lands is even worse. Like it looks like he does, like if you know anything about like skateboarding, called a scorpion, which is basically where you land on your face and your feet come like up over your head and like touch your. Google this, skateboarding scorpion. It's gross.
He does not make it.
No. And that's how this movie starts.
I mean, it's really uncomfortable because they build up the horror, like we were saying, and then you have a kid die, which is always uncomfortable.
And it's never. It's one of those things where, like, if depending on what you're watching, you're like, oh, well, maybe we'll get a kid murder in this one. I've been watching Halloween movies my entire life. Like, I've never seen a kid die.
And in the opening, the cold open, if you will.
It is a cold open. Yeah,
you don't expect it. So I think it sets it off well. And I really like the idea, again, if this were a different movie and not supposed to be the epic conclusion of Michael and Laurie, I like the idea of trauma and how it affects people differently and how like this kid was accidentally thrown into this and the way it follows him and also with Michael kind of being gone, he's been laying low for 4 years now. The town is kind of using him as the Michael scapegoat.
The gropey mother, Corey's incestuous mother. I'm not making that up. There's definitely an awkward scene where you're like, whoa. That was
looks like she's going to try to make out with
That's
him or
exactly
something.
what she does.
Not Ruth Buzzy.
No. Yes, thank you.
Obviously, the mother is very like control, like doesn't want him to leave the house. Doesn't want him to
another
date
reference.
people.
Another reference to Christine.
Very much so. Yeah, the line from the stepdad where he's like, "I hope you find love." Got a pretty good pop.
Can we just say right now he's probably the greatest character in
He's
this movie?
the-
I'm just
the
going to say
dad-
I love everything about this guy.
The
He's
the
great.
stepdad is really funny.
Yeah.
So you're right. Like now, and this is I normally won't defend Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, but there is something in that movie that is interesting. It's what happens to Laurie after the fact. Like where is her brain after the fact?
I wanted to go back and watch it, and I didn't have a chance because I haven't seen 2 since that movie came
You
out.
don't have to.
Really?
I mean, it's all right.
But in comparison,
but
But I feel like after this, it's honestly, I really do feel like after this, it's going to be a lot easier to reevaluate those movies. I really
Right.
do, because this one went so far off the tracks for me, so it's going to be easier for me to accept that one again. I haven't also rewatched it since it came out.
I just think the idea of exploring Laurie's psyche at that point, and then like the idea that mental health is a family thing, right? So like, and then she finds out halfway through that movie that the guy that just murdered her best friend and everybody in this town is her brother. Like, what happens to that character at that point? It's not a well done movie, but I do think that is interesting, and we kind of get that here with Allison.
yeah,
Where Allison even more so, because her parents are dead, all of her friends are dead, her boyfriend is dead, everybody in her life, with the exception of her wackadoo grandmother, who she's not really wackadoo, obviously, are gone. So like, what happens to her?
yeah.
Where she has to live with this in this world where not her uncle murdered everybody. So I do think that those are interesting beats to touch on. But yeah, to your point, is then we get a flashback we get 78's flashback, we get a flashback of 2018.
I'm interested to get to the end of this movie because there is something I think also frustrating about what they do, which ends this movie on a down note for me. But we'll get there. But it's interesting you bring that up because
Which
there's
part?
a connection.
The flashback thing?
Well, when you're talking about, how do you move on and how does it affect you afterwards and all that? Like the way they try to wrap this movie up with the switch of, now there's a new Michael Myers, now there's not. But then there's like, is Laurie trying to ruin my happiness in my relationship and all
you mean
that?
with Allison?
Yeah, and then it's like, nope. Like they set
The
up some
switch is so fast.
Yes,
Yeah,
they set up some interesting ideas. I think these are all on their own interesting ideas, but they just keep going, nope, because they're like, here's an idea, but we're not going to follow through on it.
I did think that
chopping it right up, throwing it away.
the Michael Myers that we get in this movie, I didn't think was going to be real.
Yeah.
I thought it was a figment of Corey's imagination, and it was going to turn out to be Allison and Corey were our two, because they kind of hinted that at the end of 2018, where she's got the knife in her hand, but she hasn't dropped it. Right? Like they focus in on her like gripping the knife, and I was like, well, that would be interesting to twist that on its head and say that Allison is now the killer for this franchise.
I think there's something interesting to be said about the way they set up Corey, and he goes through this horrible experience where clearly he's not a killer. He didn't mean to kill this kid. It's a horrible circumstance. The town basically replaces him as Michael Myers because he's gone, but now they need someone to, that's terrorizing the town, and he's this pariah. And like all the stuff that he's going through, it kind of like he's trying to do the best he can, but he keeps getting crapped on around every corner.
Right.
You've got the band bullies, which everyone knows.
I know
Band
That
bullies.
was a weird one.
Guys, give me a break. These kids look like middle schoolers. They look like they're 12 and they're trying to bully a 20-year-old. Get the out of here.
It's so-
Seriously, that kid is like 4 feet tall. If he came up to me and tried to bully me,
when they walk up to each other and Corey, like that kid is like at Corey's mouth.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you worried
also,
about,
why does
bro?
that kid sound like he's from Brooklyn?
I
You're in
thought
Haddonfield,
I did
dude.
say the same thing. I was like, I think I saw
The
it.
same was true of Corey's mother.
Well, Corey even himself, there's an accent that he doesn't sound like he's from the Midwest.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole thing about this movie on a broader level for me. The accents, the way the kids talked. Now I know, granted, we live in America and people travel around and move around, and I'm like, he sounds like he's from Brooklyn. He sounds like he's from Jersey. The band kids were laughable because they get out and they're literally band kids. I'm like, okay, and they look like they're 12. And you're going to be frightened by them? Like you're 20. I don't know. Maybe I'm just
why
old school, but
why they made band kids bullies. It's the weirdest thing. Like that's
or
not,
even
switch it up
make
instead
them,
of jocks. I don't know.
yeah,
or even make them physically imposing.
right.
And
They'd probably be like, why are these physically imposing people in the
I mean,
like
dude, if you're going to rip off Christine, rip it off right. Have him like Buddy, where he's this jacked, big, like 25-year-old dude that shouldn't be in school anymore. Like, make him a threat. I mean, it's not like Corey's like this tiny kid. He's a taller guy, and I'm not saying size is everything. Just look at UFC. But to me, it came off as like comedic, and I don't know if that was Danny McBride in the background, like make him really small and make him look like they're 12.
but I do kind of think
if-
that adds to Corey's character,
Like
where he's just so timid,
he's
and
so
bro-
weak
yes,
that he can be bullied by these kids.
that's kind of what I was thinking. Is that he is so broken and so
yeah.
weak that he can be bullied by
It was just a weird choice. It was
rich
like very
rich
weird.
band kids.
So he's been
with like the worst haircuts. Jesus Christ.
I mean, that's that. I've seen some bad ones. I work on a college campus. It's like, well,
I guess what am I talking about? I got
yeah, like you left the house like that, huh? Okay.
but like, when is this movie taking place? Because he gets bullied by these kids.
Yes.
And then it's like he sees them later in the movie, but I couldn't figure out the timing of this because it's like, was there a time jump?
So there
It's
is
4 years.
So it's 4.
Well, no, not from the opening scene.
Oh.
But from like when he sees these kids, because then he sees them again, and it's like, but it can't still be the same day. But it's always Halloween, and I'm like, but I think it's supposed to be the next Halloween. But they said they're seniors, and they're all still wearing high school stuff.
Well, I
Like,
think this doesn't take place. Like the end of this movie, like the final showdown, like in the house and all that stuff, is on Halloween.
That's on Halloween. The rest of it's just like leading
like
up to
2
Halloween.
days
That's why you see a
before.
Halloween party and stuff like that. Just
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, it's like Halloween
Around
on
Halloween
Tuesday.
stuff.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
It's the worst. By
Halloween Tuesday is what they should have called this. It would have also managed our expectations because Halloween's on Tuesdays suck.
the way. Yeah, it's this year.
Yeah.
But so
It would have
Lori's
also been good if it felt like Halloween, in which it does not at all whatsoever, which is one of my biggest gripes. It doesn't feel like the holiday, and in terms of the tone of it, does not, to me, feel like a Halloween movie at all whatsoever.
It's
So what, you have a party at a bar with people in costumes. That doesn't make it feel like the aura or the spirit of the holiday for me.
It is interesting if you look at this franchise, right? Like the first one is filmed in California. They got to ship in everybody knows that story. They're shipping
paint the
in
leaves.
They also there. If you go back and watch it, there's palm trees in the background. Like they can't even get them.
That first movie is a masterpiece.
Oh,
though.
for sure.
It's
Yeah,
so good.
without question. And then if you look at like I think 4, 5, and 6 may have been filmed in like Salt Lake City, so it just
They
does
were,
have
yep.
it has a different look.
Yeah.
Than Salt Lake City just has a different vibe. And then
That's one way to say it.
that's true. And then I think H2O is back in California, but like it's set in
But she's moved
California.
to-
yeah,
yeah.
it's set in California. Where I do think the 2018 felt like the Midwest, especially
2018 nails everything about it.
Yes.
The tone,
Yes.
the story, the Michael Myers,
the holiday. You see kids trick or treating.
Yeah.
It feels like parents are going out while they're, it just feels like the holiday. And that's
Yeah.
something about this one that lacked for me. Even Kills lacked that for me, even though you saw kids trick or treating and stuff.
Yeah.
to me, a Halloween movie, regardless if it's in the Halloween franchise or not, if it's supposed to take place on Halloween, I want it to feel like the holiday. I want it to have that spirit because it's my favorite thing in the world. Aside from the movie, the holiday is my favorite thing. So I just was hoping it would feel like the aura and the tone of the spirit, and it just didn't have that at all whatsoever. Like the opening, you see kids are trick-or-treating when the kid dies, but that's it. Literally the rest of the movie is not Halloween-centric. A pumpkin on the wall or sitting on a whatever, you see Laurie carving a pumpkin, and it looks just like the one she carved in 78. Cool. But that still doesn't, for me, nail it.
That's a good point. It doesn't feel like Halloween, and that doesn't.
But I wonder.
So I have a question. Halloween H2O. You said it's been. I haven't seen it since it came out. You said it takes place in California.
Yeah.
Do they explain how Michael Myers gets to California?
Yeah. So he. All right. Well, here's your Halloween H2O podcast.
He drives.
He gets out. He goes to the house that the nurse from part 1.
Okay.
From the Loomis and the nurse are in that car in the part 1, and he smashes the. So that nurse, the same actress, is Loomis's caretaker. Loomis dies. Michael Myers figures out how to. Now I will totally admit I don't know how he figured out where Loomis lived, but breaks into Loomis's house. Correct. Yeah. Thank you. Breaks into Loomis's house. Goes through the files that Loomis has, because now Loomis has all of the files on Laurie Strode and where she lives now. Reads the file, says, "Oh, she's in California." Takes a car, drives to California.
Wait a minute, you're telling me that Michael Myers drove from Illinois to California without a driver's license?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Put that man
in
jail.
He was doing very well last night.
Put that man in jail.
He had 20 years to learn how to drive really good.
Dr. Wynn taught him real well.
I just want to see footage of him like buying gas.
I know.
Right?
Just waving out the window.
With the mask. He's driving one car and then he ditches it. But he ditches it in California to get a second car. I was like, well, you still had to go halfway across the United States.
No, that would be a great. We need a whole road trip movie.
An entire movie about how Michael Myers gets from Illinois to California.
I'll watch it.
You get the scene.
Happily. The same question that you could ask about H2O, you could ask about Michael Myers' whereabouts in this, which is probably one of the most divisive things for fans in terms of the fact that if you go back to the Friday the 13th remake, a lot of people were like, Jason would never have underground tunnels. He would never live in underground tunnels. That's like Leatherface. Now here we have Michael Myers living in a sewer. He's now joined the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
He's just hanging out.
What is he feeding off of? Rats? Like, I wish that they gave a little bit more.
Also, the rest of the year.
Just hanging out.
Yeah, it's just like he's like Santa. He only works one day a year.
One day a year. I will say in the past we've seen him eat dogs and rats. We've seen him eat that stuff, so that makes total sense. So anyway,
I wish they would have explored it a little in this movie though, because we haven't seen what he eats.
He's been in this sewer for 4 years.
Yeah, for 4 years, and then the homeless guy says every once in a while he pulls someone in. Is he eating people? Like, what is he? It's just weird him living in the sewer.
Which is why I thought initially that it wasn't him.
Yeah,
right. Because I agree that it didn't make sense.
It just felt so
just hanging out.
First of all, you don't see him for an hour or whatever, 40 minutes of the movie, like
kind of like Halloween 3,
and then you do it, and
Halloween
it's this
where you don't
sewer thing. So it's very weird. But okay, plot of this movie real quick though. So Corey is now the pariah. People are picking on him. Laurie sees it, and again, there's another interesting idea. Here you have a Laurie who, as she said on the last press junket, trauma. It's all about trauma. And now you get,
right, Kevin, it's trauma.
And then you've got this other kid now who has this different trauma, but there's a connection between the two of them. They can relate, but then this guy ends up going off in the Michael Myers way with his trauma, dealing with it in a different way. And I just thought there was an interesting connection. But Laurie basically sets him up with her granddaughter because there's a big Halloween party and she doesn't want to go by herself. And she's like, "Oh, well, here's this traumatized kid."
Well, and she takes him in to get his hand fixed, but
to set him up.
Now she sets him up.
Yeah. And then you get this natural born killers thing, which I'm like, this is really interesting because now Allison is now dealing with her trauma in a very interesting way where people are crapping on her. There's a nurse that is...
No, the nurse isn't bad. It's the doctor that's bad.
Well,
the doctor's the jerk off.
There's a nurse that got a promotion because she's sleeping with the doctor, so she's getting screwed over.
That's not bad. That's bad. That's bad. She's bad.
It's definitely bad.
Or is it okay to sleep with your boss to get a job in America now?
I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do.
I thought that was a no-no now. I thought we lived in a different
world.
But
I think the umbrage
the power
should fall on the doctor.
Yeah, right.
Has the power.
There it is.
But she's a jerk, though. She's like, I mean, the way she's running her mouth and being very insensitive around Allison, and she even says it in this stuff. Like Allison calls her on, she's like,
Don't
Yeah,
you
I
ever-
do run my mouth
Do you
a
ever
lot.
shut the
So there's all these people around, the doctor, the nurse that gets the job that she should have gotten, and then the people that are picking on Corey. And these two basically team up, and they're like, I'm like, oh, they're going to become killers.
They go out to dinner at this. I gotta tell you, I would love to go out to dinner at that little diner. That place looked great. I'm sure the hamburgers were amazing.
Sure.
Where they're sitting there, and Allison is approached by her ex-boyfriend, and there's a confrontation between those two. And again, like to what you guys were saying, is that he initially is very timid until those kids push him over the ledge, and Michael kind of takes him, and there's that weird transference of whatever is going on. I'm not a huge fan of that.
The intersect. Like
Yeah,
from Chuck.
I didn't like that at all.
Were they high schoolers in 2018? Is Allison?
Yeah.
Was she in high school?
Yeah, because they're walking to school.
So-
Remember, there's
Yeah,
that
she
scene
was-
where
yeah,
like,
so
the
20
three of
she
them are
was,
walking
Yeah,
to
so
school.
she's dating a high schooler, and then all this crap goes
dating
down. Then she
a
dates a
cop that looks like
50-year-old
she's-
cop.
He's 45.
Okay, now hold on a second. Now hold on. I will say she has some trauma she's working through, right?
Right.
And I think sometimes when you have that much trauma, you just kind of gravitate towards something that feels safe.
Yeah.
And however, that's what I interpret from that relationship, is
Okay.
that she kind of gravitated to him.
I get like a cop protective.
not even
She
that,
feels-
but just like a safe, normal person.
But why not a good-looking cop?
Maybe kind
that's
of
not
maybe kind of
50?
milk toast.
But this guy's a douche.
This guy's a
he's
complete
not
douche.
though. He doesn't do anything.
A
wrong.
cab.
Oh, God.
He's stalking her.
Like,
He stalks her. He pulls her
he
over.
doesn't do anything. He doesn't. He is.
He's a jerk. He's
Why-
a jock jerk.
Why? What does he do?
Yes.
What does he do that's bad? Up until the point where he follows Corey to the overpass, he doesn't really like. Yes, he is like he pulls Allison over, but it's like, hey, I thought we were going to talk, or what? You know, your muffler is kind of messed up, and he says, "All right, see you later." And then at the diner,
Is where it was weird. She's clearly there with a guy who he's ignoring.
that's fair, but he doesn't.
And then he's acting like a jerk, inviting her over, and then like, I'm here with someone.
No way that
In front of the
no
dude,
way
yeah.
that cop backs down. From
No
staring at-
way.
And then
so
No
here's the
way.
part that I think,
And he's a
though,
cop with all his buddies.
there is a moment where even Lori says, she's like, I looked at that kid, and there's nothing there.
I
So,
like that if they're saying he saw the Michael
that's
Myers
That's
thing
what I'm
as-
saying is like maybe when he's face to face with this kid and there's something wrong.
Then they show that.
Psycho.
Yeah, right. Like,
Show that then. Show the thing through
Yeah.
the eyes. You know, show the thing like because basically what happens is the band kids end up like to get revenge. So Lori gives him a knife at the gas station. He slashes the tires. His hand gets hurt because he crushes this bottle and then gets repaired. Then all of a sudden him and Allison become a thing. And then flash forward, he's walking home from this party and he gets all freaked out because he sees the mom of the kid who he accidentally killed in the opening scene.
kind of, makes sense.
I mean, they're
mom's
dealing with
totally-
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's hard to say, like, there's not necessarily a wrong or right. They're all dealing with this trauma in different ways. It's an interesting exploration. But so she lashes out on him and he freaks out. And then he tells Allison, like, why'd you bring me out? You knew this would happen. And she's like, what? Like, she's being nice to him and, like, genuinely likes him. But obviously, she goes to get drinks and he deals with the mom in this terrible situation. He's walking home and who does he meet but the band bullies?
Right.
And the band bullies. And the main douche kid who we see like has a rich dad who talks down to him. Corey starts mouthing off to him and he throws him over an overpass.
He does throw him over, and then of course
And-
he's taken by Michael Myers,
And he's dragged into the sewer by.
which I think is
Michael
like
Myers.
I was like, well, we did see this a couple years ago in It, but all right.
See, I thought that Michael Myers was going to possess him. I thought that was like
Oh
him
my God.
taking
That
a new
would've been-
body, right? Because he's older and he's run down.
crazy.
I thought now Corey was going to literally become
Yeah,
Michael
that's
Myers.
where I thought we were going. And
Okay,
like, oh,
okay.
and that's how we're gonna keep this franchise.
Yeah, now
He
we've got
can-
a new.
He can pass from person
It's
to
still
person.
Michael. Get that supernatural
Get that
element
curse
in there
of
a
the
little
curse
bit.
of the.
But they never
thorn.
really explain that. They don't ever really go into it at all. You're just left as an audience member, like, scratching your head, like, oh, I assume that's what happened.
But
Sure,
Not that they
sure,
need,
sure, sure.
not that they need to overly explain every single detail. I'm actually not a fan of that. But I'm saying to the novice fan, they're just like, oh, what happened there? Oh, now all of a sudden this guy can walk around and kill. He could also, at the end of the movie, which we'll get to, be shot like a bunch of times and still be alive. Like he's taking from Michael Myers that power in a way. We've seen Michael Myers at the end of Kills, which basically was supernatural. I mean, he's
Yeah.
being shot,
Oh, yeah.
beaten, and he's still alive. He's basically Jason in that movie. Let's make no mistake. He's
Yeah.
not Michael Myers. But we've seen him that happen to him in the past. He's been shot, whatever, and he's still gotten up. But to go back to the scene you guys were talking about at the diner, and I just wanted to comment on this because Rohan Campbell, who plays Corey Cunningham in this movie, does not work for me throughout the majority of this movie. But that scene for me is literally the only moment where I felt any kind of intensity or any kind of threatening nature about him. And
That's fair.
The rest of the movie, it comes off as extremely forced. He plays a good guy, a nice guy, a guy that has problems really well. But when it comes to him being a threat, I just don't think he was the right guy for the job. But I understand why they cast him in this role. He's very unassuming. He looks like the kind of guy that could probably get bullied by a bunch of 12-year-old kids that are 3 feet high. But just because he's got this, I don't know, not passive nature to him, but he just looks like a nice guy, like a regular guy.
He does. Who's dealing with stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But when it gets to this point, and I was not a fan of the whole transferring thing,
Well,
it would have made more sense.
This is interesting.
Had it been like...
Justin, if you don't look at it as a transferring thing, but so Michael Myers is a killing machine. He kills people
indiscriminately.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You run into Michael Myers, he kills you.
1 day a year.
Correct.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
But this was interesting, though. But he has
old.
Corey.
He's old. He's got to catch his breath.
He's got Corey by the throat, and he's going to do one of his kills. But he looks at him.
He lets him live.
He looks at him in the eyes and can tell that he's been traumatized, been through all this
So
stuff.
okay, now here's my problem with that. When you're now you're saying that Michael Myers can recognize the trauma of another person, which completely makes Michael Myers a human being.
And it negates every single thing that we know about the blackest eyes, the devil's
So
eyes,
if he's
the pure
able
evil.
to say like, hey,
I don't think it was trauma. I think it was a kindred spirit.
so what do you mean it's like an animal looking at another animal and being like,
because if it was trauma, he would see it with everyone he's killing because they're experiencing trauma.
But there was something about his experience which made him save him. But you're right. Maybe he recognized another killing machine.
You killed someone.
Yeah.
You killed a little kid. Okay, I can relate to you. Let's hang
But
out.
there's something interesting there to explore.
he's like, hey man,
though.
I've never killed a kid. You're crazy.
Like at that point, I'm like, this is weird and this is different, but I kind of liked it because I'm like, well, what is happening? Is he transferring those powers? Now he's a killing machine.
That's kind of the premise of the original Halloween 5, right? Is that the evil transfers to Jamie Lloyd and she becomes the killing machine, which I was like,
I think if they went with that in this one, I think that would be kind of a cool way to do it, but they want to have their cake and eat it too is the problem.
Yeah, they're trying to hint at a supernatural force around this in some way.
It's difficult to introduce a supernatural element this late into a film franchise.
Totally.
Like if it's going to be supernatural, then it needs to start from a point of supernatural.
But you have to think there's some supernatural the way Michael Myers gets.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think
it's just film trope.
But
this
I
guy
also
you can't kill. Like I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think there's a reason for it other than narrative choice. You know what I mean? In
Or
the
he
same
just
way
doesn't
that
feel it.
James Bond can get shot and he still pops up and beats the
he
bad
can have
guy
sex
at
with all
the end.
those women and not have an STD.
Yeah,
But like it starts off not
his refractory period is
Ridiculous.
Come on.
superhero.
Yeah.
But no, I do think that like part of obviously they never give him a mental health diagnosis, but part of his thing is he just doesn't feel pain. He just doesn't feel it.
But at some point, there's not feeling it, and then like your body physically can't function at a.
But I think we get that in
the
this.
real world. Yes, it's ridiculous.
But you think it's movie,
and the construct of this movie is basically like he can absorb any amount of damage and he'll be okay.
But I also think we do see that in this where he is. Like there's a scene in the sewer where he's like slowing. It's when the cop gets brought down to the sewer and
Michael Myers gets his ass beat.
He does, but he's like he can't stand up right away.
Seems like he doesn't have use of one of his arms.
Well, he's half of his face is on fire. Like,
well, also they hint at this at the end of Kills. Like even throughout that movie, the reason why he's so powerful is the more he's killing, the stronger he's getting.
Yeah,
that's
like the Hulk.
That's something that's very relevant in that movie. So it feels like by the point we see him in Ends where he's like really weak and he hasn't killed in a while.
Yeah.
So I'm led to believe that.
To that point, though, is that when he does kill the cop, there's a moment where he stands up.
He does recharge a little bit.
It's like he's cracking his back. He's like, "Oh yeah, this is okay."
Well, what's
all right.
he been doing? There's a homeless guy right outside the sewer for 4 years.
Like he said, he's Michael Myers. Didn't you watch the movie?
Yeah, but like
the homeless guy said.
Yeah, that was weird. But it's just weird. It's like, okay, well, why is he hiding in the sewer for 4 years? Why isn't he killing and recharging?
Right.
I don't know.
So like, I would like.
Why do you only eat 1 day a year?
Yeah,
that's because the story requires him to be there.
Yeah, right.
Perfect.
Otherwise, it wouldn't gel with the rest of the
But so he and Allison kind of form this pact that they're going to take on the world and defeat all the people who have wronged them.
When in that scene of the diner at the very end, where she said, "You're right. Let's burn it all down." He said,
Yeah.
"I'll strike the match." I was like, "Oh man,
I'm
we
like,
are
this
getting
is crazy.
like
So now I think that it's like Allison and Corey are killers,
Right.
and Lori's going to have to reckon with that. It's like,
Kill her
now my
granddaughter.
granddaughter is a killer. See, and I thought that was an interesting exploration where Allison could go either way. She's been traumatized by Michael Myers. She's inherited this crazy stuff that's happened to her grandma's now happening to her, and she can go one of two ways.
Yeah.
And she takes the path of, again, like the natural born killers. Her and Corey are going to become killers
but
and bad
but
guys.
that plays a different way, right? Like she's saying, "Let's get the hell out of here."
Yeah, I like the
and he's
ambiguousness.
like, "Oh, no, we're gonna kill
but he
everybody."
but he now is a crazy killer,
Right,
so
right.
he's like, "Oh, I'm literally going to burn
Right.
it all down."
So, well, basically, what happens is Corey goes back to the sewer. He attacks Michael, and I think this is I think this is one of the coolest shots of the movie. Is the entire fight scene is filmed through the porthole, so you just see like both characters going back and forth through and then finally Corey gets the upper hand and takes the mask and goes, and he becomes the new Michael Myers. Now he's taking
And he
out.
says something of the lines like, "You're just an old
man in a mask."
Everybody loves that in a Halloween movie, especially the final one where
And-
where some rando dude comes and beats up Michael Myers, calls him an old man.
But
Kevin, you hit the nail on the head. And this is the reason why so many hardcore fans, the ones that this is their way of life, you have to understand, just like Marvel or Star Wars or Star Trek or DC, whatever it may be, Halloween has some of the most vocal and passionate fans of any franchise, if not the most. Which means when you get them angry, they're going to be the angriest people ever. And to me, I understand how a fan could, from the perspective of the scene, see it as disrespectful. You're taking this as my icon, the almighty and all-powerful Michael Myers, and you basically make him a bitch.
Yeah.
so
And they do.
I hear what you're saying, and I do disagree. Only in that this timeline's Michael Myers is, I mean, he's got to be what, 80?
But you just made him a superhero in the last movie.
Yeah.
Why
I
did
agree.
you reduce him to a crumbling?
But we've seen where he is in this moment. So it
Why
kind of
did they put him in that spot in this
He
moment?
didn't need to be there.
That's what I'm
Yeah, 'cause
saying.
he's-
Well, I
right?
don't know.
At the
He
end
was a
of Kills, he's at a
superhero.
high spot.
Yeah, like that's the problem. Is why did you put him as a withering old man if you made him kill 10 firefighters and survive a fire and survive all that stuff, only to then reduce him to sewer rat guy? It doesn't
Sewer
make
rat
sense.
Get it
And
right,
then,
Kevin. He's the fifth turtle.
Yeah, and if then if you're gonna say, well, there's a new Michael Myers, Corey's the new Michael Myers, then pass the torch and make him the new Michael Myers. But they don't.
No. Well, they do for a little bit.
But spoilers,
They do
they
for a
don't.
little bit.
So Corey goes on a killing spree. He kills the cop.
He kills the cop. He kills his mom. He kills all of the band kids. He kills the radio DJ, which I think is one of the best gimmicks of the movie. Is
100%.
when he cuts the DJ's tongue off, and
That was amazing.
falls on the record, and it
And
just
the record
pops.
skips because
I
it's going
think
over the
that
tongue.
was hilarious.
Loved that.
Michael Myers would be
One of the best
65.
kills.
Oh, so that's kind of young. Now that I'm 40, I was like, 65 is not that bad.
Yeah, because he was 6 in 1963.
That makes sense. Okay.
And this
Okay.
is an Amsterdam 65. This is 2022 65. It plays very different.
Very differently.
We've seen
And
it.
that DJ irritated the living crap out of me.
But I think he's supposed to.
But I mean, just the whole conceit of it.
Sure.
Is he on the radio 24 hours
I know,
a day?
right? Is he
He was
the
doing the
only
morning.
disc jockey
He was
at
doing
that
the
station?
morning radio.
Yeah, right.
His face and poster are everywhere, and then he's doing the nighttime radio.
And,
he never
and they're
leaves.
still using
Another
this trope.
Danny McBride idea.
And they're still using this trope of like everyone in town listens to this radio station.
Right.
Nobody listens,
Nobody
to
listens to the
radio in
radio.
2022.
This is
Right.
a very 1970s idea for sure.
Yeah.
yeah. Like it's
So Corey.
But the kill and the tongue on the record was
Great.
maybe the best part of the movie.
It's great.
Like, this is
It's fantastic.
They're goofing around on top of the radio station, and Corey like jumps off the side, and Allison's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And he sits up like Michael Myers.
He does.
It was an interesting. Again, if you were
I laughed at that. I chuckled at that.
And if you were transferring Michael Myers into him, if he actually was becoming the new Michael Myers, and that's where they were going, it's like, okay, look, he's starting to pick up these qualities.
Right.
He kills the nurse like Bob
I gotta tell
in
you
the first.
that
was it?
no,
It's an
but-
homage to the Bob kill.
But
Bob.
Michael Myers kills him that way. The real Michael Myers kills him. The real Michael Myers kills the nurse.
kills the nurse. He
nurse
kills the
like Bob.
doctor.
He kills the
Yeah.
doctor.
But Michael Myers, it's an homage to the way he kills
Oh, yeah.
Bob. Like
Also,
he pins her up.
Gravity
on,
doesn't work that way.
Well, but yes, we
we-
definitely.
Well, just that scene though in general, that's an interesting thing that they played with there, and I thought this was something where they were going to go, after he transfers over and Michael starts. I felt like he was. It's almost like the Freddy versus Jason thing where Freddy says, "The kids aren't afraid of me anymore. I have to make them scared again. I'm going to use Jason," and Jason starts killing kids, and it makes them scared. So Freddy can come back and be almighty, all powerful. Dream Master. And here, I thought they were going to do the same thing. It was interesting to have them kind of tag team killing together in the same scene. I was like, okay, I might be able to go along with this, but that's the only time they do it.
So
It's like Michael followed him there to make sure that he's doing it right. Like, you're not getting the job done
So
right.
I thought that was Corey. I thought the reveal was going to be anytime we saw Michael Myers, it was going to be Corey in reality doing
right,
all
but
the
in
things
his
that-
head, yeah.
Yes, yeah, he sees Michael Myers, but we know that it's Corey.
Interesting.
And I will say that scene is also insanely good, where the lights are off and the nurse goes to the sliding door, and you can just see that you can see a shadow, and it's just a little shadow going up and down, and you don't know what it is. And then when she turns the lights on, it turns out that it's Corey just gutting this doctor. So yeah, so
What a sleazebag.
he was a sleazebag. Corey or the doctor?
The doctor.
Oh, okay.
The doctor had a nice pad, though. I got to say, man. I was like,
Well,
something there.
he thinks he does too.
Yeah, right. So
Real estate prices are cheap in
at
Haddon.
Haddonfield, yeah.
Yeah.
So Corey ends up calling Allison. He's like, "Hey, man, your grandma is crazy. Like, she's trying to kill me." And then he's like, "Meet me at the diner at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m." So we go back to this. I was going to call it the Strode house. It is not the. Well, I guess it kind of is. It's her house. and
It's
she's
the new
watched-
Strode house,
It's the new
yeah.
Strode house. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, she
And
told us in the beginning. She bought a house.
She again, kind of like the head fake in 2018. She's despondent because all of these, we see the woman, the woman that we thought was murdered and kills comes back, and like her sister's like, you don't even know her name, like, and blames Lori for.
I like this exploration too of
I
like
agree.
Lori is the victim, and now you've got all these other people that are trying to put the blame onto her for luring.
when she says
Jason-
that, like,
or
you,
not Jason,
what did she say?
Michael.
She said that you antagonized that
Yeah.
man, and all you had to do was leave him alone. I was like, I don't think that's how that happened.
Yeah,
but that's not.
But yeah, now they're blaming her, and she's dealing with all this stuff. So I'm like, this again is very interesting, and that is why. So like, the town views her as a pariah, and that's why I thought her and Corey, that relationship was interesting.
Yeah.
But he takes it a different direction and deals with it in a different way. And I really think that the showdown would have been more interesting if he kind of did become Michael, because then Lori would have been able to confront Michael in essence,
a version of Michael,
but
yeah.
really it's just kind of like a little spin-off Michael.
So
I think that would have felt anticlimactic if her
her final thing is against not
wasn't
Michael.
was with new Michael.
Yeah.
Michael Myers too.
Yeah.
Right.
I just like the idea of him passing the torch more.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, you have her battle the real Michael, but the torch has been passed. She's out of the franchise, but you can keep making
Keep going.
it. There's your ending.
yeah, I mean, I have I would. There's some things that I would like to see happen going forward, but I don't know if it's actually going to happen. So
But basically, Corey has turned Lori against Allison, and
vice
Allison,
versa. Allison against Lori, because Lori's still fighting for. Like, there's that whole scene where, like, also this kid is sleeping in the house on the blood stain of the kid that he killed, and I was like, well, that's it. Like, there's no coming back.
But
from
like,
that.
so they're at odds basically,
Yeah,
and so there's now this conflict between Lori and Allison, and so it does look like Lori's being beat. People in the town hate her, and now she's lost Allison, who is her only family member who's
Right.
alive, and she
becomes
like,
despondent. What we think she becomes
and
despondent.
it looks like
and
she's going to take her own life.
And I think it's a good head fake, because Lori calls 911, reports a suicide, and she's walking past the pumpkin, and then there's a gunshot, and there's the way that room is lit, you can't tell what splatters against the wall, which I was like, that's kind of a cool trick.
Yeah, you hear it, and you're like, oh wow. I mean, it does sound.
And then it goes back to the POV, and the hand pushes the door.
And at this point, Corey's dressed like Michael, right?
he's got the mask on, he's got the jumpsuit,
he's
the
got
whole shebang.
yeah.
And Lori is dressed like she was in 1978.
That's right.
She's wearing the same outfit at the end of 1978. And then I think this is a good head fake, much like the 2018 one where Judy Greer, the gotcha line, Corey Michael opens the door, and there's Lori with the gun and shoots him twice in the chest. Well, sort of in the chest. It's when we see him laying down, it's like in his shoulder. I will call on that. I'm like, we saw in 2018 that she could hit a mannequin from about 90 yards away.
Right in the head
Headshot.
between
yeah,
the
well, not even
eyes.
that. Like, I mean, you could at least hit him center mass.
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
And she was right
So-
there in front of him, too.
Corey falls down the steps, and if there's a line earlier in the movie where Corey is saying, if I can't have her, nobody will.
I don't like the idea of him dying, because I liked if he would have been set up as the new Michael, but I do like the idea of the last thing he does is screwing her over.
Even worse.
And I wish it would have worked and held on for more than 5 minutes. Because that's the thing. He then does the ultimate turn Lori against Allison.
Yeah.
And he makes it look like Lori's killed him because she's crazy.
And so Corey sits up and stabs himself in the neck, and I was like, well, where do we go from here? Because we've got some time left.
Allison
walks in, and of course, Lori immediately puts her hands on the knife and pulls it out. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, just leave it in.
Such a
And then
setup.
she drops it on the floor, just
Allison
like
walks
she does in
she's Lori with the
every
knife, as
movie.
Corey is just like squirting blood everywhere. And then Allison storms off. Now Lori is even more now she is actually despondent.
Yeah.
And the real Michael Myers comes into the house because he's been following Corey, apparently. Now this is the final showdown, right? Michael Myers is in the house, and we've got a different Lori. She's still, and there are some bits of this movie that we haven't really talked about with Will Patton, who, if Will Patton never smiles again, I'll be happy with it because it creeps me out. I didn't like it. It was weird. But there is a moment between them in the grocery store where
Right.
she is the Lori pre the attack 1978. She's playing with her hair. She's nervous. She can't.
She's that teenager that she never got to be.
Exactly
because of
it.
what happened
That's exactly
in
it.
78.
And I was
She's
like,
literally reverting back. It's
okay.
adorable and one of the best scenes in the entire movie. I feel like the scenes between her and Hawkins are the best stuff in the movie, for me at least.
I think
we
she's
got to see the Lori that we love.
And she's got a chance at happiness finally after all these years,
Right.
where you're like,
Right.
okay.
So now this is it. Now we're back to being 2018 Lori, where she is not stopping. And I think this is a good. I agree. It's only 5 minutes, but I do like that she holds her own the entire time.
I didn't think the showdown was that epic as they touted it would be.
I think it was, but what I like about it is that while Lori is on her heels for about a minute of it, as soon as she kicks him in the leg and he like drops backward, she's on the offensive the entire time and doesn't quit.
And she crucifies him on the
sometimes in
table.
these movies, even in 1978, when she like stabs him over the back of the couch, she just kind of lets it go and then just kind of sits there, and then of course he sits up and the whole thing. This one she doesn't stop, right? You're right. She stabs him in the hand.
Well, she's been preparing her whole life for
That's
this,
exactly
basically.
it.
So I would expect if she did the same thing, and said, her character has progressed, like we saw in 2018, and that's what I wanted to see more of. She's softened a little bit by this movie, but it makes sense because she's trying to live a normal life. She doesn't want to latch on to that anymore. Whereas in 2018, dude, she had like machine guns, Uzis, and
Flamethrowers,
grenades,
yeah.
bazookas, everything.
You name
she
it.
had a trap that she built in her basement for this thing,
Which I think is great. It's a great
Yeah,
moment.
but I mean, I expected her to whoop his ass, and she does.
She does.
And it's well done. It's well shot. I just wanted more of it. I feel like, as a fan and also just a regular moviegoer, I just wish there was more cat and mouse to it, because
That's
that's
fair.
what
That's
Halloween
fair.
is. That's what Michael Myers
Yeah.
is. He loves to play with his prey. I don't like that it was instantly direct. Here it is. Like a comic book movie showdown, and then it's over.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's, you snap your fingers, it's over. I wanted more stalking, because let's make no mistake, there is barely any, if any at all, stalking in this movie.
you get
And
one-
stalking is Halloween.
You get one or two scenes of like Michael standing outside of a tree, like on the side of a tree, looking at Lori, like
It's Corey.
No, it's Michael, because Corey's in the house banging Allison.
Yeah, Corey's in the house. Michael
Oh.
shows up. He checks. He's checking on him.
Yeah,
he's making sure he's
Corey
all
and
good.
Allison are hooking
Okay.
up, and then Michael's outside.
Okay, I thought
being
that was
like,
Corey.
Hey,
Okay,
what's
interesting.
Michael's like, hey, we have a good history of tag teaming.
up? Anyone? No. Okay.
She basically has him dead to rights, but then he rips his hand through one of the knives he's been crucified, starts choking Lori, and I'm like, oh well, they're both gone. But then Allison comes back, and it's
Because
like,
because she realizes that Lori was right. Right, like she sees the DJ's
Radio
dead.
station on fire.
Yeah, the radio,
Yeah.
and she realizes that Lori. And then I guess Hawkins calls her and says, "Hey, we just had a report of a suicide at your grandma's
Yeah.
house." So then she
it just
goes back.
oh man,
but I will say
it just like
before we even-
undermines the whole thing before, where it's like, oh man, it was so evil that he set them against each other, and then I don't know, I just don't like the fact that they kept
That's
kept
fair.
undermining their own setups.
I will say, like, when she gets him pinned to that cutting board or that thing, and she slits his throat and stabs him in the side, I was like, well, all right.
Finally, which is like
When
what they should have done.
The worst one from a guy who has had his knee damaged a lot is when she drops that refrigerator on his knee on the thing. I was like, that's
tell you're getting old.
I know. I was like,
My
that's
knees.
terrible. But then
The
Allison,
scariest part of a Halloween movie is like, oh, he's not lifting with his knees.
Right.
yeah, don't lift with your back. What are you doing? And then Allison shows up. She says, this is not happening. Takes his hand off. And then they slit his wrist the right way.
Yeah, it's a good lesson for the kids.
Yeah,
man.
perfect. And they let him bleed out. And I was like, okay. This is something you can come back from, right? Like you could, in theory, come back from this, and then
Well, this is the thing we've been saying they should have done the entire time. It's like, dude, make sure this guy is done for good.
They do in this one,
So they have a whole procession.
which I do think is interesting. And the only reason is that this demon basically has been a curse on this town for 40 years. Now they've got him,
It's like a ritualistic sacrifice.
and she says
kind
that
of
she
thing,
kind of
yeah.
says that in the book that she's writing, where they Spider-Man to it and put him on top of a car and they drive
Which
him.
looked absolutely ridiculous.
It did look ridiculous.
I'm sorry.
I don't
It
disagree.
It looked ridiculous.
I think the procession and the whole thing was a little
They should have
ridiculous.
strung Garland up on him when he got
well,
there
I mean,
and lit the.
to be fair to that, this is really one of the only points in the movie where it ties into the history of Samhain / All Hallows Eve
Sure,
/ Halloween,
sure.
where you'd sacrifice something for the greater good. And that's, I mean, for me at least, that's how I read it. It's like, hey, we got to put something in here that connects to that. And I just wish the scene was more powerful.
That's what I'm
it literally
saying.
ended on a whimper for me.
I think you mean Sam Hain.
Samhain.
No, I know.
It's
I'm
actually
just kidding.
pronounced.
I'm
But I think it's
totally kidding.
also
God damn it! I was gonna say because like it always bugs me so much when Loomis and Halloween 2 is like
Sam Hain.
Yeah.
and I'm like, God damn it, it's Samhain.
I also think it's a little hard to get behind the movie and the franchise resolving around what really looks like a lynch mob.
Kinda. That's a fair
It's just
statement.
weird, like, yeah.
Like,
it just-
I mean, I get that we know that they got the right guy,
Right.
But it's still that kind
a
of
little
mob
invoking.
justice. Like,
well,
and
it's the
you're
mob
supposed-
justice from the last one,
and-
right?
Right, but you were supposed to be against the
That
mob
was the whole-
justice.
Yeah. The
right.
the whole Evil
Yeah.
Dice Night thing was bad.
and then
Yeah.
and then here they turn around and give it to you and like, hooray!
Woohoo!
Yeah.
That's
But
true.
like-
That's a great point.
But I get what they were trying to do was, like you said, the town.
The town
has
is
been-
like, we're done.
They need to purge the town of this evil once and for all. But when you look at it in this more grounded, realistic way, it's
Yeah.
just weird. And the filming,
In
the
a
way it's-
modern way, yeah.
yeah, and the filming of it did not seem like
Especially
creepy.
when the sheriff is like, "No, this
this is how. We're
well,
doing
so
it.
I'm even okay with that in a way that's like a quiet thing, right? Like if they get his body back to the morgue and you've got Hawkins, you've got the sheriff, you've got Lori and Allison, and they're all like, looking at each other being like, we need to take care of this. And if it's the four of them throwing him into the wood chipper, okay.
Yeah.
But when you've got the entire town,
Right.
lining the streets
This
of
would be a
Haddonfield.
national news story.
Yes, absolutely.
But otherwise, what they're saying is if the town doesn't see it, the town can't move on. Like, I get what they're trying to do. And I like the idea of it, but it does feel weird.
I think maybe
and
it
it's
works
just-
also better if we didn't see it in the last movie.
yeah.
If they didn't do the exact same thing in the last movie. So basically, they get Michael to the junkyard, and Lori pushes him into the grinder,
Yeah.
and they grind his
Chekhov's
ass up.
car
Give me
compactor.
the
Like it's-
ending Toy Story 3 didn't have the balls for.
Yeah.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. And they grind him up,
Yeah.
and that's they're
And then they eat the hot dogs
that's
for dinner.
correct.
They,
The joke is that obviously they always come back, and I don't know how you bring this Michael Myers back.
you
can't.
electrify the pile of goo
The
at
pile
the
of
ground
goop.
and lightning hits
Yeah,
it.
right.
I mean, they can do it. Someone
So-
reads a ritual thing, and
He's not Chucky.
blonde. You could be.
So then we flash forward a little bit. Allison's booking out of town. Lori's finishing her book.
Is just booking.
Booking.
Is booking,
yeah.
yeah.
That's true. Yeah. And then she has a really, I think, fantastic interaction with Hawkins, where Hawkins is just trying to be the good guy. He's like, I just got you some groceries, and they talk about the cherry blossoms and things. And
I thought he just worked for Instacart. Is that what was going on?
I believe you're right.
Okay.
Yes.
But I like that.
That
Lori,
makes more sense.
Lori
Yes,
has a chance
right.
for happiness.
Yeah.
It's a nice
And
send off.
here's what I appreciate. This is what I've come to realize in doing this show as many times as we have. These directors and filmmakers don't owe us anything. That's the bottom line.
Sure.
They owe us nothing. And if they're trying to tell a story, and I know that stings for horror fans, right? Because both of us, I think these characters if they do something to Superman that I don't like, I'm gonna have feelings about it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, David Gordon Green is telling his story, and I think he swung for the fences with this one, and maybe he foul tipped it. I think he hit a solid ground rule double. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I think getting a definitive ending for Lori that you can say, like, we see this is the end of Lori's story. I think it's good. I think where they go from here, I don't know. But I think that's kind of what I took away from this, is that filmmakers don't owe people anything. Maybe there should be some like reverence for characters. You know what I mean? Like Jimmy Olsen's a perfect example when Zack Snyder shoots Jimmy Olsen in the head, and then you find out later, like, by the way, that was that beloved character that everybody liked that had his own comic book for about 200 issues.
And you didn't even say his name.
And you didn't even say his name. And we just shot it. And then it was like, no, it was cool, man. We're just having fun with it.
Yeah,
right.
It's wild.
Like that is a problem.
Yeah.
But I think telling. Go ahead. No,
I know what you're saying, but it's also hard to. I mean, I don't think any director owes anyone anything, but when you make a movie that is so much filled with fan service as he did with 2018, it's the Force Awakens of Halloween movies.
And this one,
you know?
I mean, she's wearing the same outfit twice. There's the scene with Lindsay Wallace that's taken right out of the first movie.
Yeah, I mean, so when you're doing things like that, it is kind of hard to take seriously the opposite side, but I see your point and I don't disagree with it. It's just fans don't, I mean, see, we come from a different perspective because we review movies and we're fans, right?
Yeah,
so just the basic fan is not going to see it from that perspective, and I feel like so many of them should learn to be more open-minded and to put their expectations in check. Unfortunately, that's just not the world we live in when it comes to the fan community and being a hardcore fanboy. So it'd be nice if people did go into movies with that sensibility and that mindset, but they just don't.
No, I agree.
I heard it, at the press screening that I went to of this movie. As soon as they walked out, I always stand outside as soon as it's done to hear what people are saying, and not a single person was understanding of what they were trying to do with this. It was either I loved it or I hated it, and this is why.
I mean, I think general audiences are going to, what did they do to my boy? They reduced Michael Myers to this sniveling old man, and there's this 5-minute showdown at the end, but this whole movie that was the final epic conclusion,
I think he's sidelined for the bulk of the movie in the same way she was sidelined in the last one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, she was kind of sidelined in this one until the very end.
Yeah,
she didn't really
she's
do
working
much.
No, that's true.
It
was more
choice.
Allison,
yeah,
and Corey
and then to spend so much time on Corey for no reason. It's like, what? Why? It just doesn't connect.
It is. I hear you,
and
but I think for me at least,
liked it better than the last one.
Sure.
The last one was just trash.
But first 10 minutes. That's all.
But I just was like, I like Kevin said, they keep setting up things that they take away for no reason.
Well, I think,
and I'm like, what are we doing this for? You're just spinning your wheels.
If you're planning,
if I go to Lynyrd Skynyrd's farewell tour, and they give me a 3-minute version of Freebird, I'm burning the place to the ground.
Totally legit.
Right?
It's just essentially what they did.
We got a 3-minute version of Freebird.
Yeah. I think, I don't know.
And No Simple Man.
No Simple Man. Because they burn,
Yeah, and on and on, right? No,
right.
No Saturday
Ones
Night
you don't want to
Special.
hear.
No, like,
and also perfect. The ending to that is we did not even get John Carpenter's theme from the original. Not a new version that he did. We did not even get like that needle drop of the original theme from the original movie.
I guess that's
what we wanted. That's what we expected.
They needed to Rocky. Which one, Creed?
It was Creed.
Yeah.
They needed to Creed it where you earned it after an hour.
Yeah.
But the problem was after an hour or so, they're like, oh yeah, Michael's in this movie. Okay, let's go.
Except they didn't earn it.
Right.
Maybe
that's why they didn't do it. They were like, we didn't earn this. We're not going to use it.
Hey, props to them for being able to recognize and say.
Hat tip.
Yeah, do we have
sir.
an idea of like what this is made for the weekend by chance?
20.
It underperformed. I think it made 40.
Oh, I thought it was
5.
okay.
I think it was.
Okay.
I think it was supposed to make, they were estimating at first 55, but I think it ended up making 40, which is under expectations, but still 40, and it was day and date with Peacock. So
Yeah, you can watch it
pretty
for free on
impressive.
Peacock,
I mean, that's
so
still.
Yeah.
They didn't get my money.
So for me, what I would. They got mine.
They got mine.
So what I would do going forward is if we're going to do a Halloween movie, give Danielle Harris a shot. Bring her back. Let her be
I think you already know. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
I mean,
yep.
That's what I'm just going to let you know. That's what I was told they're doing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let it out on your show.
Bring her back as Laurie Strode's daughter and let her have her story. The other one I wouldn't mind seeing is a teenage Lindsay and Tommy having to take on the shape 15 years after the events of part 1. But that's what that's what I think would be fun. Danielle Harris got the shaft, and I don't mean that in any other way than what happened.
I mean, she likes getting it. If you listen to her podcast,
true.
Talk Scary to Me, she likes talking about
it is a very good
shaft
podcast with Scout Taylor Compton. But part 4 and 5, 4 she's great, 5 she's not given much to do, 6 they were like, by the way, we're going to kill you in the first 10 minutes. And
so you think they need to reboot this and keep this is over, ended?
Yeah, this is over.
Right.
This timeline is done. Now we're going to go to Halloween 4 and we're gonna go from there.
Yeah, let
And
Lori rest.
And
like
let,
if this
let
is just-
Jamie let Jamie be her. The new thing.
And fans want this. Make no mistake, it's been talked about in the community for a long time, and there is a very strong reason as to why Danielle Harris was at the premiere of this movie and
think
taking
so.
photos with Jamie Lee
Yeah.
Curtis and everyone from the franchise. We know. I mean, that's basically what I was told they're going to do from someone that works at Blumhouse. So I don't know if this is true or not. I mean, they could just be
sure.
bull- just to get fan stuff started, but I'd love to see that. I mean, at this point, we're not going to see Laurie Strode ever again.
No, I think we're done with Laurie
100%. She's
Yeah.
done. I don't want to see her back again.
That's what I'm saying.
think-
Like this,
yeah.
just let her be. Like if you're going to end it this way, I didn't necessarily love the way that it ended, but it was good enough to where it's like
You got
okay,
her to
let-
come back twice.
let her
for two
be,
different timelines.
yeah.
So
This is it.
count your
you ended
blessings.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
there you go.
So I guess that's it for this one. Let's go around the table and everyone can say where to find them.
This is Joe. You can follow me on the Twitter at Joey Butts, BUTTS21.
This is Kevin. Follow me on Twitter at Kevin R. Brackett.
And Justin, where can they find you and your wares?
We are everywhere on social media at Epic Film Guys, and you can find our podcast, Epic Film Guys Presents Brain Stew, on literally every single podcatcher. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find us. Hope you enjoy.
Awesome. And this is Tom. You can find me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. Find the show online, facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group, and of course, don't forget our Patreon, patreon.com/Real Spoilers. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, Alex is the killer.
Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, 'cause we all